Have you ever been criticized by your partner, friends, or the women around you? How did you react? Angry, defensive, or even attack back? But did you know that Stoicism teaches another way that is much more powerful and classy? As Seneca said, we suffer more often in our imagination than in reality. Criticism is just words, but it is our reaction that determines its impact. Many men feel attacked when they receive criticism. In fact, criticism can be an opportunity to grow. So, how do we respond calmly without getting carried away? Number 1, don't react emotionally. When someone criticizes us, especially from a woman we are close to, the first response is often emotion. We feel attacked, humiliated, or even disrespected. However, Stoicism teaches one important principle: don't let emotions take over. As Epictetus said, it is not the event that disturbs us, but how we interpret it. Criticism is just words, and what determines their impact is how we process them in our minds. Emotion control strategy. Instead of responding immediately with anger or self-defense, take a deep breath. Be still for a moment. Let the first emotion pass before saying anything. This is not a sign of weakness, but an extraordinary form of self-control. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If something from outside hurts you, it is not because it has power, but because you allow it to bother you." So if criticism comes, ask yourself, is this true? Can this help me grow? When we don't react emotionally, we gain full control over the situation. We can listen, think, and respond wisely. That way, criticism is not a burden, but an opportunity to grow. Number 2, listen attentively. Many of us hear, but don't really listen. When someone, especially a woman close to us, gives criticism or feedback, our minds are often already busy preparing a defense. We want to quickly answer, justify ourselves, or even strike back. In fact, Stoic philosophy teaches that true power lies in our ability to listen attentively. As Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can hear more than speak." This means that listening is a more valuable skill than simply speaking. The meaning of attentive listening. Attentive listening doesn't mean we have to agree with everything that is said, but it does mean that we give the other person space to express their feelings and thoughts without interruption. When we listen intently, we can understand not only the words, but also the emotions. Seneca once said, "No one can learn if he thinks he knows everything." In every criticism, there is always a lesson, provided we are patient enough to listen. By truly listening, we not only show respect, but also give ourselves the opportunity to understand more before responding. We become calmer, wiser, and less easily provoked. Number 3, separate criticism from ego. One of the main reasons why criticism feels painful is because we associate it directly with our self-esteem. When someone, especially a woman we respect, gives us criticism, we often feel personally attacked. In fact, criticism is just information, not an attack on our identity. As Epictetus said, if someone tells you that you are bad, don't react immediately. Consider, is what they say true? If it is true, then there is no reason to be upset. If it's wrong, then there's no need to be annoyed. This is a basic principle in separating criticism from ego. Why can ego trap us? Ego makes us defensive. When the ego is too big, we feel we must always be right. In fact, criticism can be a mirror that helps us see weaknesses that we were previously unaware of. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "If someone proves me wrong, I will gladly change my opinion, for it is truth I seek, not victory over others." This shows that accepting criticism wisely is not a sign of weakness, but rather a sign of greatness of heart. By separating criticism from ego, we can look at it more objectively. We don't need to feel offended, but simply ask, is this right? Can this help me become better? With this kind of mindset, criticism that once felt painful can actually become a tool for growth. Number 4. Evaluate criticism objectively. Criticism can be a valuable tool for growth, but only if we are able to evaluate it objectively. The problem is, many of us react immediately, taking offense or simply dismissing criticism without considering it first. Stoic philosophy teaches us to pause and examine criticism with a cool head before jumping to conclusions. Epictetus once said, "A wise man never regards criticism as an insult, but as an opportunity to learn." This means that criticism is not something to be feared, but should be analyzed with an open mind. How to evaluate criticism objectively? There are 3 simple questions we can ask when receiving criticism. Is this criticism coming from someone who understands the situation? Is this criticism based on facts or just personal opinion? Is there something I can learn from this criticism, even if it is poorly delivered? Marcus Aurelius in Meditations wrote, "All that we hear is opinion, not fact. All that we see is perspective, not absolute truth." This means that we should sort out criticism wisely. Not all criticism is valid, but not all should be rejected out of hand either. When we can evaluate criticism objectively, we won't be easily offended, but we won't take all criticism for granted either. We will learn to sort out what is truly helpful and what is just baseless opinion. This is what separates the wise from those who are caught up in emotions. Get caught up in emotions. Number 5. Pause before responding. When we receive criticism, our first instinct is often to respond immediately, either by defending ourselves, counterattacking, or even ignoring it. But Stoic philosophy teaches us not to react impulsively. Instead, we need to take a pause before responding. This pause gives us a chance to think clearly and respond wisely, rather than simply reacting emotionally. As Seneca said, "The strongest people are not those who reply quickly, but those who are able to restrain themselves and choose their words wisely." This suggests that true strength lies in our ability to control our reactions rather than simply responding quickly. Why is pause important? Pausing allows us to process criticism with a cool head, not with emotions. Sort out which parts of the criticism are valid and which are not. Choose better words so that our response is constructive, not destructive. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "If you are angry about something, ask yourself, is it really necessary to respond now, or is it better to postpone it until you can think clearly?" By taking pause, we can avoid many mistakes caused by momentary emotions. By getting into the habit of taking a pause before answering, we not only demonstrate emotional maturity, but also build more effective communication. Remember, a response that comes from careful thought is always stronger than an impulsive reaction born out of momentary emotion. Number 6. Focus on what you can control. When we face criticism or challenging situations, we often get caught up in things that are beyond our control, the feelings of others, their opinions, or even the way they deliver criticism. However, in Stoic philosophy, there is one fundamental principle: focus only on what we can control. Everything that is beyond our control is just an unnecessary distraction that drains our energy. Epictetus once said, "We have no control over what happens, but we always have control over how we respond to it." This means that it is not the criticism or actions of others that determine our lives, but how we respond to them. How to apply this principle? When receiving criticism, ask yourself, do I have control over how others speak to me? No. Can I control how I respond to the criticism? Yes. Can I learn something from this criticism, regardless of how it is delivered? Of course. Marcus Aurelius in Meditations wrote, "Your happiness depends on the quality of your mind. Do not waste time worrying about things you cannot change." In other words, worrying about things beyond our control is a waste of energy that we could be using to improve. When we focus on what we can control, we not only become calmer, but also more effective in dealing with criticism and challenges. Remember, we can't change what others say or do, but we can always choose how we respond, and in that choice, we find true strength. Number 7. Show gratitude for feedback. When someone offers criticism, our natural response is often to get defensive, feel attacked, or even ignore it. But there's a much more powerful and classy approach, saying thank you. Why? Because criticism, even harsh ones, can be a tool for growth if we are able to look at it with the right perspective. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If someone proves that I have thought or acted wrong, I will gladly change it. For my aim is truth, and no one is ever harmed by truth." In other words, a wise person does not fear criticism, but rather uses it to grow better. How to apply this? When someone gives you criticism, take these 3 steps. Take a breath and listen quietly. Look for the lessons to be learned, even if the delivery is not good. Say thank you, not because you want to look polite, but because it helps you become better. Seneca reminds us, "No man is so wise that he cannot learn from others." Even uncomfortable criticism can be a valuable lesson, provided we are humble enough to accept it. Showing gratitude for feedback doesn't mean we agree with all the criticism. It means we are wise enough to filter out what is helpful and use it to improve. So the next time you are criticized, don't rush to take it personally. Take a breath, listen, and say thank you. Because maybe that's the path to the best version of yourself. Number 8. Don't over-defend yourself. When we are criticized, our first instinct is often to defend ourselves. We want to explain, justify, or even argue to show that we're not wrong. But in most cases, excessive self-defense shows a lack of self-confidence and closes off opportunities to learn. Epictetus once said, "If someone tells you that you are doing wrong, and it is true, don't defend yourself, correct it. But if it is not true, there is no need to get angry. Stay calm." This means that criticism is not a personal attack, but rather an opportunity to test our resilience and wisdom. How to avoid being overly defensive. When receiving criticism, ask yourself, Am I defending myself because there really is a misunderstanding, or just because my ego feels offended? Is my explanation necessary, or do I just want to appear right? Would it be wiser if I just listened, reflected, and responded with a cool head? Marcus Aurelius, in Meditations, wrote, "True strength is in those who do not feel the need to prove anything to anyone." If we are sure of ourselves, we don't need to speak excessively in our defense. Our actions and composure speak for themselves. Not all criticisms need to be answered, and not all misunderstandings need to be cleared up with lengthy defenses. If we are right, time and our actions will prove it. If we're wrong, it's better to improve ourselves than to be busy arguing. So, stay calm, listen, and let wisdom speak, not our ego. Number 9. Use criticism as a tool for growth. Criticism can often feel painful, make us uncomfortable, or even hurt our self-esteem. But if we look at it from a wiser perspective, criticisms are actually mirrors that show us parts of ourselves that can still be improved. So, are we going to break that mirror because we don't like the reflection we see, or are we going to use it to tidy ourselves up? Seneca once said, "A man who fears criticism is a man who fears growth." Criticism, whether constructive or hurtful, is actually fuel for our growth. People who want to grow will not turn a deaf ear to feedback, but will digest it with an open mind. How to use criticism to grow? When receiving criticism, do these 3 things. Separate the criticism from the emotional tone that may accompany it. Focus on the core of the message, not on the way it was delivered. Reflect on whether the criticism has a point. If so, take it as a guide for self-improvement. Don't just listen, implement change. Use the criticism to become a better version of yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A wise man prefers the truth to his ego." If we continue to reject criticism just because our ego is offended, then we will be stuck in stagnation. But if we use it wisely, we will continue to grow for the better. Criticism is not an enemy, but rather a hidden friend that directs us to a path of growth. Instead of getting angry or offended, we can choose to learn, adapt, and evolve. A true Stoic does not see criticism as a blow, but as a ladder to higher wisdom. Criticism is an inevitable part of life. No matter how well we try, there will always be someone who gives their opinion, sometimes constructive, sometimes damning. How we respond to criticism is what determines our growth, not the criticism itself. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If someone proves me wrong, I will gladly change, for I seek the truth, and no one is ever harmed by the truth." Stoic philosophy teaches that criticism is not an attack on our self-esteem, but an opportunity to see the world from a broader perspective. Epictetus reminds us, "It is not things outside ourselves that bother us, but the way we interpret them." Criticism will only hurt us if we give it the power to hurt our ego. But if we receive it with calmness, we can use it to go further. Criticism is a double-edged sword. If we reject it outright, we may lose the opportunity to learn. But if we accept it wisely, we can use it to build the best version of ourselves. A true Stoic is not afraid of criticism because they know that the truth is worth more than just being right.